Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Fancy Beer Name podcast with Planet Beer TV. I'm Christian.
I'm Paul.
And yeah, this is Fancy Beer Names podcast, and it's brought to you by our sponsors, Mosaic Ball Printers, Europe's leading beer map producers. So anyway, Paul, we're riding off the back of what's probably, when we look at it in the future, a fairly successful first episode.
I mean, shattering, ball breaking, I should imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is episode 2, and we're doing this in sequential order.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that was the best way to do it. I thought if we did the first one after the second one, it might get a bit confusing for people. So this is the same sitting really. So the fatigue hasn't set in.
No.
The beer definitely hasn't set in yet.
Not yet.
So let's see what we can do.
On that note, what are we drinking?
That's a really good shout. Let's have a look. So we're drinking a Polly's.
Love me some Polly's.
So this is a Leading Edge, which is a pretty conservative 5.3% pale ale. Centennial, Citra, Columbus and Simcoe.
Fantastic.
All the way from Mid-Wales.
Mould.
Yeah,
no,
I think that's the Centennial coming through, to be honest.
You bastard. Yes.
Why I order?
Yeah. Polly's from Mould in North Wales. North Wales? I think it counts as North.
I'm just going to say mid.
It's up like...
Edgemore bets.
I think... Do Polly's have a tap room? Still no.
No, still no.
But I've heard rumours that they might be getting one. And it's not where you'd think.
It's not in Mould.
Apparently not.
It's not South Wales, is it?
No.
Sellout.
I shouldn't have teed that up because I haven't looked into it and I don't know. But I think I remember being told, because I was thinking it's near Wrexham, so surely with the popularity
Wrexham,
of Wrexham, it's got to be Wrexham. But apparently no. What I heard was Chester.
Yeah, not far away.
So Polly's may be getting a tap room. I don't know. Polly's, if you're listening, get in touch. Let us know. On that note, Paul, it's time for us to do our fantasy beer name for the week.
What is that?
So yes, this is where we pick. It's the icebreaker for the episode where we pick from a list of fictional beer names which we've hilariously come up with the concept of the idea of when we've been out and about, on the road, in the pub, drinking, talking shit. And we'll basically pick one and then we're going to try and allocate it to a
Sorry,
brewery.
I was just going to say, like, going out drinking like a bunch of punk rockers and then like hard men and then like punk rockers, put them into a spreadsheet and collate them.
Yes, well, in this case,
in alphabetical order.
Just notes on my phone. Pretty hardcore.
That's us.
I'm having a look.
Choose one. Come on. We should do it like battleships, actually. We should like choose a...
Yeah, we should put them in grids.
A16.
Yeah. Put them in grids. That'd be quite good. That one I'll leave for another time. Here we go. Wall-to-wall dads.
My beer today is wall-to-wall dads. Yeah.
That's got to be a cask.
Where's wall-to-wall dads come from? I think. Oh yeah, I know.
Come on.
I know. So we were. I think this is Verdant, but this could apply to any number of tap rooms which sit on industrial estates around the UK.
Yeah,
to be honest with you,
I think I remember where this came from.
But I think we're in Verdant, and Verdant is in an industrial estate, and it's surrounded by all kinds of interesting things. Specifically, a soft play area for children.
Yeah,
and I think there's a gym.
Well, there's a unit opposite that does gymnastics.
That's what it is. It's a gymnastics unit. So areas for parents, specifically dads, I think, to take their children on a Saturday or after school or whenever it is. But I think what we were saying is, I bet if you come in here on a Tuesday, this place is just full of wall-to-wall dads because they've just dumped their kids and sat in the tap room.
That's what they were saying. It's basically there's obviously, I mean, as someone with a 2-year-old daughter, when I saw that there was a soft play next door, I was like, this is fantastic. It's somewhere I can just leave her.
In Cornwall.
And then go next door. But yeah,
you can travel all the way down to Cornwall.
Just to do that, yeah. And it's far away, Cornwall, as well. Obviously, Cornwall's far away anyway.
Well, there's 2 different types of Cornwall.
Yeah, there's Cornwall near and Cornwall far.
Yeah, far away Cornwall.
No, Cornwall far and Cornwall further. I think is probably the
Put them
best
both
way
on
to
the
put it.
list.
There you go. That's a series of beers,
Yeah.
hopefully brewed like a collaboration.
It feels like there's a dipper and tipper progression. Yeah.
Maybe a collaboration between Pipeline and Vernon. Why are we talking about that beer? What it was, opposite them, they've got the gymnastics place on Tuesday evenings, or at 5 o'clock on Tuesday. The dads drop their daughters off and their sons, drop their kids off at the gymnastics, and then for an hour, they just go over to Verdant. And for a short while, the place is wall-to-wall dads. I think you probably coined the term, or I coined the term. One of us did.
It doesn't matter.
And it was hilarious. At the
Oh
time.
my God, did we laugh?
Wall-to-wall dads.
I just love the idea of the dads taking their children to their respective activities and then drinking 6.5% IPAs over the course of an hour and then driving them back home.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd have to drive. Well, not for some people living in Penryn, I guess.
I mean, Cornwall's lawless.
It is a law unto itself. But on the subject of that, so we've got to try and allocate now a brewery or a style to it.
Wall-to-wall dads.
Like I was saying, I think it's got to be a cask. It's got to be a modern cask.
Do you think?
I think so. It's got to be a dad sort of beer. As the name suggests.
I suppose. But that's kind of cart before the horse, isn't it? You kind of
Possibly.
Yeah.
Am I going down the most obvious route?
Possibly, but it doesn't matter. That sells.
Yeah. Who does
That
modern
and
casks?
sex.
So I suppose that's if we're saying it's a modern cask, who at the moment is nailing modern cask?
Modern cask, in my eyes, is nailed by Glasshouse, but that's not a Glasshouse name beer.
That definitely is. It's not Japanese
that would
enough.
that would be called Alaxia or something like that.
Yeah. Ashkenazi or something. Even that's like a...
You come back to it, man.
We'll come back to it. We'll circle back round to
The beauty of this is it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's ultimately the ice-breaking wrapper. What have we got on the schedule for this episode?
You're going to talk about something I wasn't involved in.
Yes,
So basically, we just get to listen to you fart on.
Well, hopefully you'll ask about it because you weren't there.
I know.
So yeah, recently we've just released the blind beer tasting where we got 6 craft beers, and I say craft like quite liberally because...
So this is a video you did this Saturday just gone. I don't know when this is going out, but hopefully, as Chris says, the video will be released on our YouTube channel by then. Fingers crossed if it gets off his arse and edits it.
Just shortly afterwards, yeah.
So this is a video you did. I couldn't make it because I was off doing something with my parents.
Yeah, you were seeing your parents.
God, it's depressing. They're fine.
Fantastic.
Borderline alcoholics, really. But there we go.
That's great. You always have a good time, and that's what I like. But yeah, so we did this. Got my friend Johnny Macro involved. Now, he's not actually called Johnny Macro. This is a complete fabricated name that we've done for him.
I even called John.
He's called John. Yeah. So he's the co-founder of the calendar crawl that we do. So for those of you who watch the channel, you may or may not be aware of the calendar crawl, which is like a short little snippy travel vlog that we do. We've got a calendar. We go around to a calendar of pubs, and then that month we go to that pub, and then we get a photo there. We have some pints, then we go for a night out in that sort of area.
Never been on one of those either.
You should come on one. It's good. It's a good laugh.
Yeah, it's your clique, isn't it?
The one most recently in Hull was is pretty messy. We got my mate Matt involved. It's the first time he's ever done one, and yeah, he took us to all sorts of naughty places.
Rip Matt.
Atom.
Oh, yes.
No, that's not. Atom's fine. Atom was great. But no, we finished off in like the casino and stuff, which is not
not a casino night.
It's not usually the standard. We don't usually do that.
Disgusting.
But yeah, but what I will say, if you're ever in Hull, Atom Brewery is great, and the casino, which I think is the Grosvenor Casino, it was £3.50 for a pint of styrofoam.
Classy.
$3.50 in a casino. That's probably good. I don't go much. I wasn't gambling, so I was watching Johnny Macro. He's a man blessed with good luck on the roulette table, and I was just watching him win £700.
But is he blessed with good taste?
Which I suppose we'll come on to now. So yeah, he's more of a macro lager drinker, but that is not to say that he doesn't dabble. So he does partake. He partakes in the craft, and yeah, I think ultimately what I want to kind of talk about on this one is just the kind of debrief of what the fuck happened with the results.
So set it up for us. So what was the deal in the day? So as I understand it, you were basically getting Johnny Macro to blind taste a bunch of lagers from a macro variety and a craft variety.
Yes. So we had six craft. Now, like I say, I'll use the term quite liberally on craft because there was a German beer, Augustiner, which I still think they count, although they probably brew industrial quality, macro quantities of it. It's
German
still,
beer gets a pass.
Yeah, because obviously they're the home of lager, and you can still find that in craft beer shops. So I had no qualms with putting that.
And if you say there's no craft involved in the classic German lager brewing, you're wrong.
Absolutely. Reinheitsgebot aside, with its death to innovation. Anyway, we also had the macro.
Gloss over that.
We also had the macro ones with Carling, Madry, Carlsberg, Stella, Birra Moretti, Bud Light. Now, Bud Light, I remember, if you've not watched the episode yet, go and watch it, because we'll just go through the scores here on the spoiler alerts. But yeah, Bud Light came a resounding, combined, this is between me and John, 3.88 out of 10.
So it was
out of 10.
That was bottom of the table.
Oh, it was bottom. It literally didn't taste or smell like anything.
Do you know why that is?
No.
Because it's too woke.
Yes, I did. Yes. Obviously, they had, I can't remember
and
the
that's
person's
scientifically
name.
Proven by Americans.
It's now too woke. Yeah, you had all the Americans up in arms about that. Then it kind of went left-handed giants, West Coast pills. I threw that in as a real curveball because
number 9. Okay.
Number 11.
Oh, how many were there?
There's 12.
Did you mention that earlier?
6 and 6.
That's just math. That's I need facts.
That's just maths.
I'm piecing this together myself. It was Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, so 6 macros, 6 crafts.
I did miss that. I'm sorry, Chris.
And that's fine. Maybe I didn't explain it. Maybe. But yeah, West Coast pills, 11.
Okay.
What we basically
you can see why that might be a bit of a kick in the teeth if you're not used to it. Kick in the palate.
I think it was more the fact that, although it's called the pills, obviously it's trying to mix together different styles, isn't it? Because you've got the West Coast element. It's kind of like, I think when I was reading the can, it's left-handed giant brew pubs who are in Bristol. Their interpretation of a West Coast brewery's interpretation of a German pills. So it's kind of like a meta go through of styles.
Bridge too far for Mr. Macro, I feel.
And I mean, for me, although we agreed that it was a good beer, we both agreed that it wasn't a lager.
Yeah,
it didn't. It wasn't a lager.
I have had it. I vaguely remember having the same sentiment.
But we still rated it fairly as like 2.5 because at 2.5 each. So it came out as a 5 because we just thought, well, you know what? Yeah, it's a good beer, but it's just not necessarily a lager.
The old top of the pops chart music on this.
Somehow, Lucky Saint came above that.
Wow. Okay. Non-alcoholic beer.
Non-alcoholic beer. So I did want to throw in some Mash Gang, but it's actually quite difficult to get Mash Gang.
Yeah,
still.
And you actually came to me asking for some, but I drank it all.
And you drank it all. Yeah, I did want to.
Tons of
I wanted to put in Stoop Dry, the Japanese rice lager, because
Stoop.
that is fantastic. Like literally, I have that. And
pro tip, everyone: if you can't get Stoop, drink their cheap lager.
Yeah, I've not had that.
It's absolutely brilliant on a summer's day, just to quench that thirst and stop you going crazy down the pub.
Interesting thing about Lucky Saint, though, as good as it was a non-alcoholic beer, dog biscuits. It smelt like dog biscuits. It tasted like dog biscuits in liquid form. Yeah, but it still wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it's still dog biscuits.
Overly bready.
That's a fair. That's fair.
That's what happens when you're trying to overcompensate for the lack of alcohol in these styles. I think with lagers, you either get over bready or you get over sweet or you get over almost bitter because you're trying to make up for it because lagers are clean and crisp, aren't they? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the alcohol gives the X factor through it. So as you take the alcohol away, then you kind of have to make up a shortfall somewhere, and that's where most craft lagers fall on their arse.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think Lucky Saint's a good alcohol.
I think on the whole, what we were saying about craft lagers was that the reason you can tell, because I mean we could pretty much tell every single one that came out, whether it was craft or macro. It's the unfiltered, unfined thing. You know,
that's interesting. You could actually do that.
Mostly,
okay.
yeah. Okay. The one that did fool us was Augustiner. that did fall. We thought that was macro, both in taste and in looks. Like we thought that, but we knew somewhere we'd gone wrong. But anyway, from 9 up to 9, we had Beak, Lund, which is their Hells. Which, to be fair, that scored 6 out of 10. But I gave that 4. That was my second or third favourite.
Right.
But John just didn't like it, so he gave it a 2. So that kind of balanced out. Then we had Beer and Moretti. So the second of the macros, up in 8, which was 6.25. Then we had Stella above that on 6.5, joint with Don Zoco.
And of course, instantly you went home and beat each other's wives.
Yes.
I'm not sure if Johnny Macro's even married, but
He's not. No, he's single. If anyone's after a sugar
wife.
daddy that just won £700 at a casino and drinks macro lager, but also dabbles in craft lager. But Don Zoco was the big one for me. There's a cat just come in. A cat called Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Hello, Steve.
He'll be fine.
So Don Zoco was the big surprise for me because I scored it lower than John did.
This is Big Foam.
Big Foam.
I love Big Foam.
But clearly at this point, I can't remember where in the room, it came out sort of in the middle.
Is this where you start getting lager fatigue?
So I think this is the thing. I think this is something to talk about for going ahead in the future when we do these kind of drink-alongs or these blind tastings. There is a kind of element of fatigue in the end because we're burning through them quite quick. Cameras have got batteries. Johnny Macros have got attention spans. I've got to keep people happy. So, we kind of needed to just burn through these lagers. We wanted to get to the pub anyway. And I think we did actually go on a run of some fairly decent, average, slightly above average macros, which, let's be honest, it should come as no surprise that in 3rd, 4th and 5th there was macros, and Carling, Madry and Carlsberg all scored fairly well, because regardless of what you really think about macro lager producers made by brewing companies rather than breweries, really, they've perfected the art, haven't they? They've nailed it down. They've chemically got it to a point where it's like
consistently
mundane,
inoffensive.
Which is what we've said. It's easy to tell from the craft lager from the lager, and it was both because of the appearance was a bit more unfined. Obviously, it was hazier, but the other thing was generally the craft lager tasted like something, and had flavour and smell, whereas the macros generally didn't.
That's really interesting then. So do you think your scores were skewed by the fact that you were trying to judge it on the fact that it's meant to be a lager, and as soon as you put any kind of element of
non-objective
mundanity into it, you were scoring it down? Or you maybe from your point of view, you knew it wasn't really classically a lager. You were doing it like that. Maybe. I mean, there was also elements where I think one of the reasons why I rated Don Zoco down a bit, I talked myself out of giving it either 3.5 or 3.75 because I think I'd said I wasn't really enjoying it after the one that I'd had before it, and then I was still going to give it 3.5, and John was like, "Really? You just said you weren't enjoying it?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, that's true." And then I thought, well, hang on. I know that that's a craft lager. Am I literally wanting to give it a little bit of a higher score because I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt because I know it's a craft brewery? But then you downscored it because it was a craft brewery.
But then I downscored it because I thought that was a fair score on balance.
You just stuck in some kind of weird.
Yeah, I didn't know
philosophical.
Didn't know what the fuck was going on at that point. But when I found out that was Don Zoco, I genuinely was shook because I drank Don Zoco Big Foam on tap with you and Hannah, and I scored it on Untapped as like a 4.5 or something because I thought it was a great lager.
It's where you have it and when you have it. I mean, if you just strolled down to the hot vault, after work in 26-degree heat, man, that pint's going to hit you well.
Yeah. No, that's true. And obviously when we were just sitting there and burning through 12 beers, that we,
Thirds, though. Drinking sensibly.
Exactly. So I think it worked out in the end to about 4 pints. Carlsberg, came 7.2. That was 7.25 out of 10.
Yeah.
Madry, we both thought was stellar.
I'm sorry, Madry can literally kiss my arse. I think that is the worst thing you can ever drink in a pub.
Don't you worry. Although I gave it a good score because it was a blind tasting, I've objectively told them to get in the bin on the video.
Thank God for that.
And then Carling 7.75. Now that was a shock because I wouldn't have thought that I would have enjoyed Carling enough to give it the score that I did, but clearly I did. And then the top two, thankfully, were two crafts. So in second place, there was Augustina, Hell's, or Hell.
Craft adjacent, let's call it.
Craft adjacent. Yeah. So that was 8.25 out of 10. So it was a good score. First place, Lost and Grounded.
No.
Hells.
Brilliant.
I'm really glad, 8.75 out of 10. I'm really glad that Lost and Grounded came up there because obviously I threw them in knowing that they are that they're a big craft lager brewery.
Probably the most highly regarded craft lager out there, I think. So
I'd say it's them and Donzoco and Braybrook, which I couldn't get hold of any Braybrook. But we're probably going to do a second one of these. So
yeah, I mean that's really good to hear because Lost and Grounded have built their small little empire on their lager production, and that in particular is an incredible beer. So
it is.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well that's positive, I guess.
I think we will do a second one. You're more than welcome to join for that one if you're not seeing your parents.
Only if my parents could come.
We'll have them off camera. I mean, my dad was there. He was the pourer, so he was the one that was making sure.
Yeah, but your dad's quite kind of experimental when it comes to drinking beer.
He loves his crafts.
My dad would only drink Bathams.
My dad's actually worse than me for drinking a unique beer now. Like he literally, if he's had it before, he doesn't want to know. He's like,
that's really funny.
I want uniques.
Little aside, my dad's classic dad. Man's 70 now, and he, classic cask beer drinker from the Black Country. I mean, that's what you do, right? When we opened the bottle shop, the tap room as it was actually, he started coming in and drinking because he wanted to support his son and daughter-in-law. Anyway, long story short, we went round on Saturday, opened the fridge, and it was full of Attic.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which knocked me backwards. I was not expecting that.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
I'll say full. There was about 5 cans. But,
to kind of bring it round also, just to kind of tail off the lager piece, Attic are releasing a new lager soon.
They are, yes.
So maybe that could feature in part 2. Assuming the video does well. But I'm sure it will. But ultimately, even if it doesn't do well, if we had fun doing it, we're still going to do it. So
well, ultimately, you're just drinking beer all day, so that's nice, isn't it?
It's fine. So this kind of rounds off part 1. So I think we should go towards our ad break for this week. So this is our fantasy ad break. This is one that it's not real. Last week, Paul read out the advert for Sud Buddy.
Which you wrote.
Yeah, which I wrote.
With a help from a little cheeky AI.
With a bit of help from AI. And this week, Paul has written his own with no help.
I use the structure of yours from the AI and then basically gutted it. Yes.
Yeah.
So to a degree, AI adjacent. I'm using that phrase quite a lot.
Yeah. So it's basically a photocopy rather than a
facsimile
direct.
Of a facsimile of a facsimile.
It's a fax. Yeah.
Like the narrator in Fight Club.
Yes, exactly.
And now, time for a word from Planet Beer TV's fantasy sponsor.
Are you tired of swiping left and right as you look down at the bottom of your beer glass, looking for someone to share your sessions and slurp your suds? Are you a Zythophile, but would also just like to be a plain old file? Then try the brand new dating app for craft beer enthusiasts, Yeast Affections. We believe that, like hops in craft beer, the best connections are made when people are blindly thrown together in a hot whirlpool of desperation. Whether you're a horny hophead, a stout-loving simp, or just after a crafty hookup, Yeast Affections helps you find someone who desires your delicate palate and your charming habit of always going on about how much you love Gurzes, even though you only ever really buy mid-strength IPAs. Explore local breweries, discover new favourite ales, and bond over your shared love for all things craft beer, where the chemistry between you is as strong as the bond between hops and grain. Then bit of water, bit of yeast. So get ready to embark on a flavour-filled journey of bitter romance. And who knows, maybe there's a shared handpull and a growler fill in your future. The yeast affections are brewing collaborations and fermenting connections.
And welcome back to part 2 of the Fancy Beer Name podcast.
Hello.
Hello, Chris. So, yeah, let's start with a fresh pour because we got through that last one pretty quickly. So that was the poddies we had last, wasn't it?
Really good.
So I've got a cheeky little overtone here.
Lovely.
Called Freezing. And it's a, cold IPA.
Oh, this is, I mean,
we
we're wondering about what to talk about for part 2, but there's a point of debate already.
God.
Is that a real style?
What's it all about?
Yes, cold IPA.
So before we get into it, it's a 6.6 cold IPA. Oh, and this has got a few new hops in. No, it hasn't. It's got one new hop in. It's Citra Healey. So I think we go in New Zealand hops again. Strata, Eldorado, and Eldorado Cryo. Look, Overtone in my eyes can do next to no wrong. So
fantastic.
I'll just trust them.
I mean, what are the chances? I mean, assuming that Taihiki is a New Zealand hop. I mean, I think it's probably almost certainly going to be.
And he also directed What We Do in the Shadows.
I was just about to say, what's the chances that there's a single hop Taihiki beer called Waika Taihiki from New Zealand's equivalent of Brew York or something along those lines?
I mean, I'm not a betting man, but I'd put loads of money on it.
I'd literally, like John did in the casino in Hull, I would be all on black.
And that's when they call a callback. Anyway, cheers, dude.
Cheers. So, what do we reckon? Is cold IPA... That's really nice. Is cold IPA a style?
Well, it is.
Because
it's not an official style. It's a marketing style.
Isn't there a thing about... Isn't it essentially just... Not a lager, but it's
hop lager. But I always get mixed up between this and mountain IPAs as well because it's marketing terminology for the same brewing processes. I'm not saying those two things I just mentioned are the same, but there's a lot of crossover between it. Look, if it's not in the official style guide, I'm not interested, Chris.
That's really nice. I mean, I'd probably just call that an IPA.
Yeah. Anyway. But
obviously the cold goes into the fact that it's obviously brewed at a colder temperature, which is a lot like lager.
Yeah.
That's the educational bit that we should probably try and cram in, which is why
I'm desperately trying to get a segue in here because I've gone past my point.
I like
of
segueation. Never ridden one.
Nice. So I think cold IPA is definitely an American invention. Could be wrong, but I'd put money on it being an American style that's crept over here. American breweries.
See
where I'm going?
Nice connection.
Okay.
So is this for our corner of misery, the misery corner feature?
Well, not officially called that yet, but why not?
Let's
christen it the misery corner.
The misery corner, which is basically going to be bringing you more bad news from the craft beer industry every week. Or every other week.
Subscribe and listen for more fun, informative chat.
Subscribe and listen for all for all your craft beer doom and gloom. Obviously, last week we talked about Crooked House.
Yep.
And to a lesser degree about doom and gloom for craft beer, especially smaller breweries, the tax reform.
Yeah.
This week, you brought to the table, if we start doing this as a regular thing, which obviously our viewers, our listeners and viewers are definitely going to want some more misery in their lives.
Yep, I do.
What are you bringing today?
Let's talk about Anchor. The Anchor Brewing Company. So, it's really sad news. They've basically closing the doors.
So, Californian brewery.
One
of the OGs.
The oldest craft brewery in America. I'm not sure where it stands in the world because I always get a bit murky with craft breweries. For everyone listening, I just did that thing with my fingers where you punctuate. Anchor Brewing Company. So 1896 they started.
That's a lot.
1896.
That's a lot.
That's some time ago.
Yep.
And then
it's not as old as the Crooked House, but
it's not as old as the Crooked House. Not by about 150 years, actually. Interesting. But 1896 they started, so 127 years.
Yeah.
And I didn't just make that maths up in my head. I just read that off a bit of paper, actually. The company will completely cease production and liquidate all of its assets, he said in the blurb. So it's gone. So unless someone steps in and buys it.
Basically like Wilco.
a bit like Wilco.
a bit of a
Anchor Steam, a bit like Wilco.
A bit like Wilco. Yeah. Obviously, that's a thing that's happening over in the UK. I doubt we've got any American listeners, not least.
Oh, not now.
but yeah, there's that. So I'm sorry, I really keep knocking you off track here.
It's fine.
Tell me more about Anchor Brew. Obviously, I've had Anchor Steam.
Anchor Steam, so that's a really interesting one. So yeah, they basically invented the idea of the craft lager. Again, the Germans. But yeah, as we know it as a craft lager, Anchor Steam. Yeah, so they were a trailblazer, and I think really what happened to them in the 80s and 90s in America and their success paved the way for everything that we're talking about now. And I don't think there's any denying it. Yeah, there was other factors and other companies at the same time that were coming up. But I think Anchor were like solid kind of trailblazer, really, for this whole industry.
I mean, I've got to say, I actually quite recently in the last few weeks, few months, I had an Anchor Steam. And
I don't like it.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, man, I tell you, it was fucking boring.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, why am I drinking this?
Well,
but in a way, that kind of has a strange parallel to the Crooked House from last week.
I've got to hear this.
Because the Crooked House is one of those pubs where, like, no one really went to it. And I mean, there were people that went to it and it was having a bit of an uptick. But on the whole, half the people, or probably 3/4 of the people, and I include myself in this, who are outraged about it being burnt down and no longer being there, never went to it really any more than once, or definitely didn't go to it on a regular basis. But yet now we're going to burn, kind of, we're sad that it's gone. And I think in the same way with Anchor Steam, you can drink that and go, God, that's a boring beer. But you still can't deny that the brewery did things and the heritage of it and the lineage. So I think there is a parallel to be made. Do I get a pass on that?
Yes, you win that.
That wins.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
Cool.
You've pulled it back.
I brought that back round.
But I think what I wanted to talk about really quickly because of that is, weirdly, I think before we started recording this, you mentioned something you were talking about on Twitter. Sorry, not Twitter. What's it called now? X.
Yeah.
The platform for everyone's favourite fascists.
What a fucking cesspit.
Ugh, what a
I don't know why I'm still there.
It's off it. Anyway, and that's the idea around variety and options, right? So let's talk about when Anchor really kicked off in the sort of, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, and the craft beer.
They were around the same. Well, they kind of came of age to a big audience around the same time as Sierra Nevada, didn't they?
When the whole craft thing started happening in America, and America being the trailblazers of the modern craft scene.
Yeah,
fight me on that. I don't think anyone would. No one would argue that. I don't think
people only fight with you on that.
My dad would argue it, but
true, trad dads.
But yeah, when they came up, there was X amount of breweries, and I wish I had the stats about how many craft breweries were knocking around America then. But now, as of today, there are 10,000, just shy of 10,000 craft breweries in America alone.
Wow!
Now, that's insane growth, and you reap what you sow in some way, because Anchor sort of fed this huge boom, or part of the feeding of this huge boom, and everyone stands on their shoulders. But
it's almost like decay. It's like it's a thing that it nourishes the soil for everything else to grow on. And there's my connection, death.
Join us next week for more philosophical
the misery corner.
The misery corner. But I guess that it's happening all over the world now. Even places where you wouldn't think craft beer would take a foothold, and in Asian countries who were not more than sort of 80, 100 years ago at war, on how bustling with craft beer breweries and innovation and things like that, and it's happening all over the world. So I guess my question to you and everyone else is, how much choice is too much choice? And the reason I mentioned your conversation on Twitter is because I think I'll talk to someone on the Craft Beer Channel Twitter feed.
Yeah, it's a Craft Beer Channel thing. So they posted that there was some sort of view. There was an article that was posted, and Johnny just made the point. When they talk about these kind of like things about the craft beer scene's in a bit of a rut and how's it going to get out of it, it's always someone that hates the hazy pale ale.
Sure.
And I think my point when I replied to it was just, I find that to be the ultimate contrarian opinion. And we see it a lot. We see it a lot on like forums and stuff where it's the person that's been around the block, that's been there since day dot or whatever, and they see a popularity in hazy pales or a certain beer style that's bringing new people to it. And there's that kind of element of, I think they're just pissed off that it's kind of like, when your favourite band gets popular, it's one of those, the first album was better or the second album was better. You kind of bemoan that. And I kind of think you get to the Morrissey of opinions. It's kind of like, it's that contrarian almost, fuck you, I'm better than this sort of thing. And you come full circle and end up drinking lager. And my point was just that I see that opinion a lot. And I get it. One of the people that replied to it, the reply to my comments was just saying, look, it's about choice. When you go into a tap room now, there's 20 taps and 18 of them are pale ales, hazy pales, and then the other two is like there's an impy stout and a sour. I mean, I don't recognise that. I think whenever I've been to a tap room that's got that many taps, there's different styles on. There's like a Pilsner. There's always a West Coast, and I'm a big fan of the West Coast. If anything, I've turned more onto West Coast and the bitter styles way more than I ever have done. But it all started for me with the fucking hazy pale ale. That's the one that brought me into craft beer, and it is a springboard, and I think people just need to persevere.
Yeah, and I think it all ties into that one thing then. So, bemoaning the lack of innovation, which is valid.
Yeah.
And the validity does hit me quite hard when there is 10,000 breweries in the US who have overtaken Anchor by considerable margin in terms of creating innovative beer, but they have stagnated to a degree because it's the same styles.
Yeah.
I know there's more stuff happening, but when there's so much option and there's not enough innovation, is that the problem? I can't really think about any breweries in America that are really pushing the envelope anyway.
No.
Unless they're doing some crazy kind of sour fluff marshmallow stuff, which is fine, but also that's a grotesque thing to be drinking.
I love it.
But you're a grotesque man.
I think you point out it's great and it's totally right. But I also kind of think I'd love to speak to someone like John. Is it John Kimmich who did Alchemist? Obviously the OG of like New England styles and dippers. Well, not necessarily dippers, but I'd love to know for these innovators that actually do make a style which is then massively imitated.
Yeah.
Left, right, and centre.
And people like it though. That's the thing, right?
But don't you view that in the sense of like children? We have children or whatever, and we hope that they're just better than us by the end of it. We don't want to be better than them, or at least unless you're someone like Donald Trump or but you want your kids to eventually achieve more than you ever did. So in a way, all these breweries that are like Verdant and a lot of the English breweries as well that have come off the back of the American craft beer wave, I hope that they look at it that on the American side and think, I love that there is breweries out there doing things now that is kind of as good as, if not better than we're doing it. Yeah. Even though we made it first, but they're improving on it.
Well, I guess on the plus side in the UK, we won't have that problem because innovation's absolutely being tanked with the new tax reform. So, thanks, Rishi.
Which is a tie back to last week's episode. If you haven't listened, please do.
Kind of enjoyed the mystery corner.
To be fair, that was actually quite enjoyable, considering I thought it was going to be quite a morose subject. I think we kind of got some stuff off our chest.
Therapy complete.
You'll find us in the misery corner.
You will find us in the misery corner and other places.
Yes. On that note, I suppose we should talk about, as we close the episode, thank you very much for listening. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Please subscribe and like. We'll be doing these more regularly. And of course, the OG platform for us is YouTube. If you want to see bad posture in action, then check us out on YouTube and watch the videos. We don't always have bad posture.
We always have great hair.
Always bad posture, great hair.
Strap line.
It's a strap line. It's not a beer though, is it?
Put it on the list.
We should come back to what the wall-to-wall dads.
Oh God, yeah.
We never actually did that in the end.
What is wall-to-wall dad? It's definitely a trad beer. Let's do that.
Trad beer.
And you know what? Let's embrace it. Let's give it over to Timothy Taylor's.
Or I'd say Cloudwater. I reckon Cloudwater could do some of that. They do a lot of modern cask, and they're not outside the realms of weird names, but it's probably not a Cloudwater name.
Timothy Taylor's.
Timothy Taylor's.
Wall-to-wall dads.
Episode 3 coming up soon. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Fantasy Beer Name Podcast is brought to you by Planet Beer TV. This episode was recorded by Luke Bartlett with mix and sound design by Jake Healey. Thanks once again to our wonderful sponsors, Mosaic Board Printers.